Cold Case, an Angelica Dale Mystery by P.K. Armstrong. Chapter 5. After speaking with Sandy, my investigative process began. Normally, I began by listing information I needed to confirm or disprove. However, since I only had Stormie Gyles' story, third hand, I immediately got online and completed a local, state, and federal open records request. The nature of the crime indicated to me that interagency cooperation would not be out of the ordinary, especially because Osgood Police Department was a small agency that probably requested assistance from state or federal authorities in high-profile crimes. I made my way to the kitchen to make more coffee and decided on green tea, which made me less jittery. I stared out the kitchen window and noticed the wind was picking up a bit, but the day was still bright and sunny. I hadn't asked Violet and her friends to pick up the yard, and taking my tea out and setting it on the porch, I slowly worked my way, picking up the remnants of water balloons, pulled Violet's bike under the protection of the porch, and locked it, and collected various games and gadgets and put them up in the storage bin. I finished tidying up the yard and made my way back to my tea resting on the little side table on the porch. I tested it, accepted it still had enough warmth, and sat on the porch swing. Staring out into my yard, I realized there was also another thing I needed to do. Explain to Christopher that I was going to take a case for his mom. For in all honesty, I had already decided I would do what I could for Stormie Gyles. If I discovered she was indeed guilty, then I would do what I could for Sandy. I began to rock back and forth, the porch swing creaking with the motion, and wondered what I was going to say to Christopher, and even more importantly, I realized I had no idea how he would react. I explained to Christopher his mother's request, and we got together a few days later. Christopher, don't be ridiculous. Your mom hasn't created some case in an effort to manipulate me to her house. It was no secret that fall was my favorite time of the year. The heat of summer was gone. It was still warm enough for outdoor activities during the day, and evenings began to be cooler, which resulted in the occasional fire in the fireplace in the evening. Christopher, knowing my preferences, had surprised me with a picnic lunch, complete with ham and cheese pinwheels, potato chips, fruit, chocolate profiteroles, and sparkling water. The picnic spot he had selected was in Moreland Park, the oldest park in Fillmore. Roland had brought a small portable outdoor fire pit and a blanket to stave off a bit of chill caused by the afternoon cloud cover. My new case had become a light-hearted debate. I was surprised by his reaction. Or is that exactly what she's trying to do? Does she not like me? I asked, a look of alarm on my face. My chest was tightening up with anxiety. Maybe I had read the situation wrong. My mom isn't like that. Between my dad and my brothers and me, Mom has become a master at plain speaking. I just thought she had a friend in need and realized she knew an investigator and asked me for help. The fact that this investigator is dating her son was coincidental. Of course, I agree it would be the perfect opportunity to get to know her and the rest of your family better, unless... I hesitated, my face screwed up in apprehension as a thought struck me. You aren't comfortable with me getting to know your family? My insides had clenched up in anticipation of his response. My distress was mirrored in Christopher's face. He dropped his ham wrap and grabbed my hands. No, sweetheart, I would love for you to be as close to my family as I am with yours. I released the breath I did not realize I was holding. Then why are you irritated? I guess my first reaction was irritation that Mom didn't check with me first. He held up his hand before I could express my indignation. No, let me finish. I didn't feel she needed to check with me as if I have some sort of say in what cases you take. But she could have at least asked me if you would be comfortable with the approach. I relaxed and smiled at the concern in his face. I grasped one of his hands tight and reached up and caressed his cheek with the other. No worries. Her approach was just fine, and she even gave me the opportunity to decline her request if I wasn't comfortable. But I was. Am comfortable. Honest. I paused and waited until Christopher's face cleared and his body relaxed. He was still watching me carefully, but let go of my hands and reclined, resting himself on his arm. So what do you think of Stormie's story? He asked. His voice was neutral. Well, I've searched some online news stories, but I won't have any details until I get a response from my Open Records Act applications. I have a friend that can push some things through. My voice began to fade away because I was distracted by the grin slowly forming on Christopher's face. What? I asked, and then it hit me. Did you get the case file? Christopher laughed. No, not the police file. I couldn't do that. But I did get Osgood PD to send me what they could. I told them that you would be looking into it. He pulled out his phone, and seconds later, my phone indicated a new email. Thanks, babe, I smiled. Did you look at the file? I opened the email and began perusing the facts of the case as outlined in the documents. Yes, I did. If I was going to sum up my conclusion with one sentence, I'm shocked the prosecutor went forward. I nodded my head. That was one of my thoughts just reading the press coverage. Of course, the press doesn't have access to all details of an investigation, so I took it with a grain of salt. I read a little bit more and then put my phone down. That wasn't your only thought? No. I saw gaps in the investigation, questions that should have been asked but weren't. Some were obvious. The captain I spoke to said the case lead was new. It was his first murder case. He also said there was a lot of political pressure for a fast resolution. I asked if you would meet with any resistance, and he said probably not. The case is considered closed because it went to trial, and most of those involved aren't around anymore. I'll send you his details if you want to make contact when you get there. He sighed heavily. What's wrong? Nothing. I just thought it would be nice if I could drive up with you, but I can't go right now. He paused to take a drink from his bottle and looked at her. I've been asked to do some training next week. Training? That's different. I reached for another pinwheel and nibbled on it. What kind of training? Several of the detectives and crime scene technicians have complained about rookie mistakes made on the crime scene by first on-scene patrolmen. They asked me to work with one of the forensic leads and put together a short in-service training so they stop messing up cases. Nice. Have you ever wanted to go into something like that? Teaching, that is? Actually, I really like the FBI instructors at the academy. I could see myself teaching. I've helped a couple of guys on the firing range. I took one of the profiteroles and took a generous bite. I could totally see you in that kind of role, too. I glanced at my watch. Are you sure you don't need to go back? Christopher chuckled and grasped my hand. Are you implying that you are not used to having this much time with me? He gave me a smile that always melted my heart. Not during the middle of the day. He kissed my hand. How about we stop for coffee and go pick Violet up from school? I rolled my eyes. Oh my goodness, I forgot to tell you, all her friends fell in love with you when you called during the slumber party. I began picking up the remnants of our picnic. I know Violet will be over the moon to see you, but can only imagine how excited her friends will be.